So yeah, let's just kind of jump right into it, Regina.
Yes, let's do it.
Jump into some questions first. I think we'll just kind of start learning just a little bit more about you and your background, and then we'll kind of switch into. It's gonna be hard for me, y'all, because my film that I'm producing now is called Between Rhythms.
Oh wow! Oh wow! I knew it was cousins. See, immediately.
So if I miss out, y'all, please don't hold it against me, okay?
That's fine.
But I guess, Regina, just start just telling us a little bit about yourself and kind of what sparked your interest in filmmaking.
Yes, well, I am an actor, writer, and filmmaker, and I'm one of those people who I've known what I wanted to do since I was a fetus, hopped out the womb ready, and honestly, I started out truly with the love of acting. I've always been an entertainer at heart, especially loving to make people laugh, which is so funny because I feel like I'm similar to Jordan Peele in a way. Like, he's a very funny guy, but his mind, as far as the psychological thriller, like that twisted space, I also really enjoy as a film lover and filmmaker. But yeah, I've been in the entertainment industry actually since I was 9 years old, starting out as an actor. And then I've also been writing for as long as I can remember, but professionally that came a little later, and ultimately it came down to I'm never one to wait on somebody to give me a yes. I say yes to whatever God's already given me. And so the visions that come to me, I find whatever I can to get that going right away. And like being a filmmaker has been, for my journey, extremely empowering, not just for me to be able to say yes to my stories, but other people's stories as well. I am the founder of RLH Productions, which is a boutique production company that specializes in amplifying Black stories. And I especially noticed that I tend to attract Black artists who are just getting started in their journeys or are having to say something really personal with their art. And so, I'm really big on empowerment. I'm also very big on equity. So more than just what the story is, I'm very concerned with who's behind the scenes making it happen. And so that is something I'm looking at when I am putting together a team and looking out to see who's trying to grow, just even in their craft, just offering that. So it's a little gist of who I am.
No, this is good. So talk a little bit about, your training as an actor, and what that experience was like for you.
Man, it's rigorous. Real rigorous, I've done, of course, all the little classes and courses when you're like a kid and everything. But honestly, some of my best acting training came from when I was on speech team in high school. And now for those who do not know what speech team is, it is actually not what it sounds like. And no, it is not debate. But they actually break it up into like performative events and more so public speaking. So with public speaking, for example, you have an event such as like SOS, which also means special occasion speaking. And that's where you give a persuasive speech infused with humor. And then you have your more performative events, like what I did was original comedy, where you're essentially creating like a one woman, one man like show, and you're putting together all these characters and making an original piece. And, the schedule as far as rehearsal, as well as just the team effort that are required to support one another in our individual events was very thorough, And so it really just like ingrained in me to have a very like disciplined mindset when it came to the craft. Right. Also, coming from the church, everybody got a lot of their performance training, honestly. We're singing in the church, so going to choir rehearsals and all of that kind of instilled that in me. And I did some, theater like growing up in the church too. But ultimately, it was that I feel that laid a really firm foundation. And then my training at NYU, I was in the Meisner studio, for anybody who knows. Their studio systems was also very helpful, and it really built upon the foundation I already had. And honestly, it was really a big reminder to me as well that we pull so much as actors from our personal experience. Right. And so I found that in the years since I've graduated from NYU, I've became eons of a better actor because I done lived a little life and I'm only 12 years old. But like I've lived, and I feel like that just informs your emotionality and everything you're able to, use with that. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I tell people like acting is like one of the most vulnerable positions you can do.
You laying it all out there. You laying it all out there, honey. Yep.
All this stuff. So the fact that, the life experiences, play a role into that, I think it's just natural, right? Yeah, so how would you say like your experience as an actor kind of translated to the transition working as a filmmaker?
Oh my gosh. It's almost like there was no transition. Like it was so seamless because I'm truly a big proponent of the fact that like your gifts will serve one another. And so I definitely feel as an actor, it has absolutely informed how I direct. You know, I have a specific language that I'm able to use when I'm communicating with, you know, my actors.
Absolutely.
And with Missing Rhythms in particular, like specifically was able to cast a lot of actors from the theater. And so we all had this kind of like common like language that we were using while on set. But I think as an actor, it helps me both in terms of the writing and the directing of it, because it's making me go deeper into the psychology of character. And so and I'm also a big story girl, so I love story, but ultimately what makes up story are the people. We fall in love with a lot of our favorite TV shows because of the characters, you know, and so being able to have kind of that as a launching pad, you know, knowing how to dissect a character, what are their wants, what are their objectives, what are they saying, but not saying in this moment, helped me to craft kind of a framework to give actors when I'm directing. And also as a producer, like when I'm developing scripts, I'm trying to see like if things make sense within the story, or if they're just kind of, you know, not really helping, you know, so
Good. So, you know, just transitioning to, you know, Missing Rhythm. So talk to us, I guess, let's just kind of start with, you know, introduction, you know, first. So how were you introduced to the project, and how did you just like, okay, this is something I might want to do?
Man, Missing Rhythms, gotta love it. So just a little like backstory even to how it came to be. So I am the director and one of the producers of Missing Rhythm, and our writer star is Aja Houston. She is a bad girl, bad meaning good. And she is like super phenomenal, comes from the playwriting world and theater. So Missing Rhythms is actually her foray into the screen and screenwriting. And we actually, you know, connected on this project back in 2019. And just a quick like overview of what it is, you know, it's about a group of Black women who have been kidnapped to this mysterious insane asylum facility, held against their will. And now they must use rhythm to remember their identity and fight, or else be lost behind the ominous blue door, which you'll see what that blue door represents like in the film. But you know, Aja and I connected on multiple levels. We're both writer actors as well. And she has such a passion for telling stories that are really speaking to a lot of the inequities in our systems today. And there was this like sprinkle of an idea that came to her after she had encountered a news story that took place in 2014. And there was a Black woman who, you know, she got pulled over for a routine traffic stop because she was dancing at the light, and the police are like, "What you doing?" And they pull her over. And, you know, she's like not understanding why she's being pulled over. They're trying to assert that the BMW she's driving isn't hers. She says like, "What do you mean? Like, I'm a banker. Obama follows me on Twitter." They, in their minds, were like, "This Black woman is crazy. There's no way she can be who she says she is." And literally held her against her will for an 8-day ordeal in an insane asylum facility. Forcing drugs upon her. And once it was proven that all her claims were true, the BMW was hers, she was a banker, and Obama did follow her on Twitter. Once all that was proven true, she sued them and lost the suit. Ultimately. So really the kernel of the idea was from the fact that so often in society, Black women are gaslit into believing they're not who they say they are, and that they can't take up the space that they dare take up. And so that is really why we connected with this. And my first short film, Adullam, kind of touched on, you know, it's cultural appropriation, utilizing the genre of sci-fi. And so I'm a big sci-fi girly, big genre girly. And so when I read the script that Aja sent way back in 2019, you know, I got chills all up and through my body. I'm like, this has to be made. Like, this is absolutely like my bag. And so, you know, her and I have been working to get it off the ground since then. And finally, it is now here. So, yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So from a director's perspective, right, how would you describe like your approach? So when you read the script, you know, for the first time, right, what are you looking at? What are you paying attention to? to say, okay, this is something I can do?
Yeah, for sure. I think the first thing for me, I definitely have to have that like spirit connection. Like when I read it, am I literally getting chills in my body? And it's crazy because as long as I've known about the project for years, every single time I read it, no matter what iteration, I would always get chills. And I'm like, I gotta do this, And then also I'm a very like visual person. I like to say sometimes I think in movie.
Yeah.
So as I'm reading, I literally see everything play out. I'm like, I see this so clearly. And Aja, I love her because she knows what she wants. And I was like, maybe you should try directing this. She's like, no, I don't want to. I want to be the star of it. Yeah. Like, this is my foray back into the screen. She comes from an acting background. And she was like, you direct it. And I was like, okay. And it only made sense to me more and more because I'm like, girl, I've been envisioning this ever since like you showed it to me. So yeah, you're right. Let me go and like step into it. But I think ultimately it is that connection I have like on instinct. And then if I literally can see it, like if I can see it, there's no reason why I'm like not gonna help to make it come to fruition. So yeah.
Gotcha. So, once you connect right with the script, then the fun stuff is about to happen, right? When we got to break it down and start to find the beats and all that kind of stuff. So talk to us about your analysis kind of component where, again, you're starting to explore like these characters' personalities, their backgrounds, and how you can tie all that stuff together to make an amazing film.
Yeah, I mean, where to begin? Because it is we're saying a lot in 15 minutes. Right. We're doing a lot. Yeah. But, like I mentioned, as a writer, like I'm big on story. We need to have a clear beginning, middle, and end. I want to make sure that if I take this back to where I'm from, just outside of Chicago, will people watch it, be like, oh, okay, I get it. I'm really just not big on the stuff that feels so far away that can't nobody grab it. Like I want people to watch and feel something. And so I think for me, starting there with story was really important and having kind of a guiding light throughout with which I navigated, directing my actors and like making changes to the script developmentally. And so thinking about this idea of how can we showcase Black woman taking up space. And so I would like to think of the film as that happening progressively. I mean, even as you begin to see at the beginning, there's shots that I'm trying not to give too much away, but like there's, but there's shots that you see characters are framed in like a wider framing, or we have somebody like sitting in a corner versus as we progress more and more throughout the film, you see the cameras like getting closer in and like they're taking up the full frame, And so I was thinking about it in that way. And then obviously like rhythm is such a big component. And so I thought about this on all levels, from asking every single one of my main characters, like in general, like for them as people, what does rhythm mean to you? And incorporating that where I could in the story and in what I was saying to them while on set, but ultimately it was taking into all of this like consideration and kind of putting it into one melting pot. Like I had a lot of angles here, but I would say taking up space and understanding what is the rhythm of this film was really important for me as a director.
Gotcha. And, to that point, this isn't like a solo kind of game, right? That we play, right? We rely on so many other people.
Oh, God.
So can you just talk about, for you, helping to put together, your crew? You mentioned like representation and its importance earlier, so just talk about, that importance of, okay, I got to build a team, around me, I'm the director, quote unquote, in charge, right? But, I need some support,
Absolutely.
from everyone. So can you just kind of break that down a little bit?
For sure. I mean, the best directors to me, they know how to delegate. I think that's like the best CEOs because you ultimately are, for a moment, you're becoming like the leader of your own small business. So you need to know like what to hand off to. And so I had a cast and crew, majority women, and majority like Black women in key department roles. So we had Kim Cohen, our fantastic DP. We had Tony Adeyemi, one of our amazing producers. Julie Bersani is someone I've known for a long time, another fantastic producer. Yamoria Wright, our co-producer. Like I just have my girls ready to go, and also guys that they love and refer me to. I'm like, they're cool too. But ultimately that was really important to me. And also mentorship is a big part of why I do what I do as well. So I previously served as the pre-production supervisor of an org called Black Girls Film Camp. camp. And so we ensured there was an opportunity for some of our mentees to come on set to shadow. And not only that, but they got to also shadow during the pre-production phase, sit in on some meetings, and also post-productions. Because shout out to our sound designer, Bernard Weiser, who has a long-standing history with Sony. And by the grace of God, he was able to get us into Sony sound studios and do all the mixing. And so I ensured that our mentees were able to be present for that, to experience it. So
that experience.
It was very community driven all around.
Yeah. So, to that point, let's transition just a little bit about, the team a little bit more and just give them a little bit of love. Because I think that's important that, it's not just one person, to get people to understand, right? That, you can do it by yourself, but that doesn't mean you should do it. Right? Exactly. So specifically, can you talk a little bit about your DP?
Yes.
Is it Karen?
Yes, Kim.
Kim? Okay, Kim.
Yes.
I thought, it was beautifully shot. So can you just talk a little bit about her and her?
Go on and on
vision?
about Kim. Kim is so meticulous. She is so intentional. Every shot, there was thought behind it. She also is one who is she's very adamant about ensuring I understood why she was doing what she was doing, even on the technical front. Right. I'm more of someone, I lean into story, but she was still gracious enough to explain to me, and not in the let me tell you what this is because you don't know what's going on. Like, she genuinely, wanted to connect on that level, and she truly is a master of her craft. And she showed me so many references and so many things that helped me to have an understanding, like, oh yeah, I like this. Like, she explained even like the different aspect ratios and why it mattered that this scene was in this one and this was in another. Like, we talked about so many things. And Kim also has such a can-do attitude. She's one to not dwell on problems. She's very quick to find solutions, And again, I recommend her highly. Like, she is just truly a woman of excellence in what she does. And I think her eye absolutely elevated this project. And it was also her who had connected us with Panavision in order for us to even receive the Panavision grant. And so she had a history with them, and she just, that girl knows what she's doing.
Yeah, she crushed it, right?
Yeah, she's amazing. So shout out Kim.
Yeah, nice. And, again, I think that part of this is just understanding that, we all bring our unique kind of talents and experiences, right, to the table, and just being open. And it sounds like, the type of director that you are, you're like, let's just explore together, in a positive kind of equitable.
For sure. I'm a big craft person, and I'm very big on ensuring everyone feels like they have the room to operate in their zone of genius. And ultimately, I wanted to bring people into the fold on this project who knew how to communicate this film in their respective language. If you're a sound designer, how are you communicating through that? If you're a production designer, shout out Jolene, how are you communicating?
That's what I'm going next.
How are you communicating through that? There's so many crafts, and I don't think the average person realizes how many hands touch a project.
Right.
You're blessed if you have multiple people in all these different lanes. A lot of times indie filmmakers, we trying to wear as many hats. Yeah. But I find as I progress in my career, especially on one project at once, I'm not trying to be everything everywhere all at once. Okay? That is truly a lot. And so it's definitely important, that we're making space for people to do what they do well, and then not micromanaging when you bring them on. Let them do.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Just give them access, to the opportunity. And after that, it's on them.
You're right. Exactly.
Just make the most of it. Right.
Empowering you.
Right.
The tools, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So, you mentioned your production designer, as well. So can you just talk a little bit about her and her work and importance on the film?
Yes, no, Jolene Louise is incredible. Big world films are not the easiest to tackle on top of you being on a shoestring budget.
Right.
or something like that. So, we got really creative, and Jolene really jumped right in to make a lot of what I envisioned happen. And we found, just creative solutions like along the way. And so, she came in, I think it was the day before of her prep, where we had to dress the whole like insane asylum like room. And then gratefully we found this really eerie like municipal building in downtown LA that provided a lot for us to set dressing we needed. But then as far as that world of that specific asylum, Jolene had so much of like the postage, the signage that was all over the place. And just even being able to have her connect with our gaffer, who Will Prada, amazing also. He helped to make sure that this world felt eerie in terms of the lighting. But yes, Jolene really brought a lot of her ideas. I know she's an alum of the Issa Rae's like Find Your Tribe program.
Oh, okay.
I believe.
Yeah, right.
Yes, and I think I feel like I might have scrubbed IMDb, and that's how I found her from. So I love an IMDb search, but no, she is amazing, and we were really fortunate to have her.
Cool. So let's talk about the film a little bit more now. And have we all seen the film in here?
Oh, great.
Yeah, we're all in the same trust tree. So that's excellent. Okay, right. So, I wanted to start with the beginning, in the Audre Lorde quote.
Man.
So just talk a little bit about the importance and the significance of that quote to kick us off.
Yes. I mean, one, the whole idea of like being something other than yourself, the allowing society to, potentially shrink you or make you feel as though you are being eaten alive. One, the eaten alive part, I was like, oh, this is giving psychological thriller. Like, it was, so even like that part of it felt like on brand with the genre.
Exactly.
But, especially today, and it's been ongoing, I do feel like there's something to be said about outside forces that would try to erase you. Like we're in, I feel like, a big period of having to push back on erasure.
Yeah.
And so I think that speaks to that entirely, trying to erase who you are, what you stand for, who you say you are, who you know you are. Again, I will say it again, but like this film really touches on the fact that Black people a lot of times are gaslit into believing they're crazy for thinking they're brilliant. And so I think that quote ultimately, captures that in such a succinct way. And again, the genre of it all, am I eating alive?
Right, yeah, it sets it up, right?
Yeah.
We're like, oh, okay, let's go along for this ride, wherever it's going, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then, I thought it was interesting, next, we don't just jump right into it. We hear first.
Yeah.
And I could tell that was a distinct kind of choice as well. So just talk a little bit about, those notes.
Yes, absolutely. So I think we were just talking briefly offset real quick about the importance of score and music. And while it's not necessarily like instruments that you're hearing in the opening, it is the musicality of children, and that playfulness. And I am really big, especially in genres like this, on like juxtaposition. I love like going from something like that where you're hearing the soundscape of a playground or kids playing, and then cut to, immediately like a stark white space and someone looking like really distressed. Like it was really important for me to establish the sound first. And also something that's coming to me literally even in this moment is I think a lot of times, especially for Black women, you see a person and you automatically make your assumptions. And I think even allowing just the audience, because you don't know who, what race, you don't know who it is like that you're hearing like right in the audio. And so just as putting everybody collectively in that place of just pure innocence and just that playfulness and knowing like this is the core of where we all start is that childlike, innocence. That's where we're all worthy of just, like that humanity, I feel like really sets us up well. Only for us then to be immediately thrust into the dark world of the asylum. Very intentional choice.
Yeah, I could tell. And, even like that first visual that we see, I tell the students all the time too, like that first visual should always reflect a theme or something that matters within the film. And we see, the character, just alone. She's kind of like off-centered, so not really
on purpose. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And
So just talk a little bit about all that.
That's exactly what I was meaning. See, you be picking up on stuff. You be that was also intentional. I know that's something that I talked with Kim about from the beginning. I'm like, Kim, I want her left of field. Like, I don't want her in the center of the frame. And it kind of representing being like left on the outskirts of society, and also like her seemingly small in this grand kind of like frame. And so that was really important for me, for sure, to show her kind of like small at the beginning because of who was making her to be small. But then again, like as we progress, we'll see that change in terms of the framing. But yes, I really wanted to capture that, and going back to that soundscape in the opening, that playground laughter, all of that, it's so full and it's so rich. And whether or not you can see anything on screen, it fills you up. Like, have you ever heard a child laugh? If you hate kids laughing, we need you to get help. But like, if you just see that experience, that live in that, only then to see like a Black woman like shrinking in the corner, you're left to feel like, okay, like it actually shouldn't be like this way.
Exactly what's going on. And, I think too, I love the color in here. And I think you set that up early on as well. Can you just talk about like the palettes, that you all are using, and, those significances?
Absolutely. Again, shout out Kim, and also our colorist, Mez. Mez, love him down. And I love that DPs and colorists do have their own kind of like language going. Exactly. And this is again where I'm like, this is y'all's zone of genius. You just help me to, know how to translate, what I'm wanting story-wise. But it was really important for Kim and I both to sit in those coloring sessions with Mez originally. And her and I had also had many, many references that we gave one another. And one of the things I told her from the beginning was that this insane asylum world, anytime we lived in that, very cold, need them whites white, like, need the grays gray. But then when we're in those moments of flashback and of remembrance, warm.
It's so vibrant.
Like life, like we want to make it feel as though like you are exhaling anytime you see, those memories. And I think also just for the audience to make sure they're not enduring like visual fatigue, because it can be hard to live in a claustrophobic world like that. Like, it is intentionally very claustrophobic in the asylum, and which a shout out to Jim, because he caught that and he was just telling me about that. But then when you live in these memories, you feel like you can literally just lay back, like lay out. And so I wanted the color to reflect that, very warm browns, earth tones, very contrast to those blues, harsh light, harsh white.
Exactly.
That was really intentional as well for the juxtaposition.
Yeah. And, even, like the blue door, and it's significant. Let's put it that way. I thought that was all smart, and really interesting the way that, again, we're able to understand coming in and out of these experiences, and I think the color helped, kind of connect that. So, awesome. So I guess, along those same lines, we talked a little bit about the cinematography, but I wanted to go a little bit deeper about, the progression, because for me, this film visually starts a certain way, and then as we kind of build up, it reveals, a lot more. So can you talk just from just like a visual perspective, right? How this film kind of progresses where, it's so kind of like claustrophobic and tight, and how we kind of express that progression.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, on top of the color and as well as the framing, something else that stood out to me visually was definitely the movement. Because I mean, missing rhythm, we gotta move. The movement, as well as whether or not it was like capturing kind of the locations we were at, like at large. And so there's like a shot that was kind of just us. We weren't even like intentionally trying to get this. Like, there was a shot of, Dr. Snow was like walking down these like escalators, and you kind of see the vastness of this facility. And so that was really important for us to put in. And even that shot at the very end and the kind of like Marvel-esque like credits to show that this is a part of a much larger plan, And I think that for me as a storyteller, as a director, I'm always trying to find what I'm trying to communicate in the big picture of things, especially in relation to the times as well. And so I think having those kind of big landscape shots for me visually represented, so this is what happens when we zoom out and we realize like even this like microcosm of like racism is happening here. Like there is a macro systemic globe, like a real global issue. And so I think that's something I wanted to capture, and then contrast that with the moments of intimacy, even between the women, because visually something that we also wanted to communicate was the solidarity and the idea of being my sister's keeper, because it was ultimately the tapping of one another that woke them all up. You know, right. And so like that scene with our main character, and who we later found out is Wanda. I mean, everybody's seen it in here, so I can say it. You know, like that moment in the film when she's trying her best to awaken, you know, Maxine / Jesse, you know, it's heartbreaking to watch, because I feel like this is sometimes what we might go through as people. When you see someone who's like, you could know who you are. Like, I promise you, this is who you are. And some people don't even believe it. And so finding ways to incorporate more 2 shots, more 3 shots, or if there's like a slow pan where we're seeing the tapping of like hands down the line, like just wanting to see more than one body in the frame was really important to communicate that solidarity, you know, ultimately. But yeah, and the movement, I definitely wanted to contrast that with the like static kind of ness of the beginning. Like everything is very still. It's very still, and I'm loving having my actors look down the barrel. A big inspiration for me visually for this one was Severance by far. Love me a Severance, one of the greatest shows of our time. And I love what Severance does, because there's a lot of like just still shots straight on, and the character is like just taking up the space. And I don't know, something about that visually puts me at like such unease internally, and that forced me to kind of reckon with what it makes me want to go like, what are they saying with this, you know? And so I really liked that. And then the idea of being in such a kind of regimented kind of structure, a very rigid structure. And then I don't know how many of y'all have seen like the second season of Severance, but it gets chaotic. Like there's movement like everywhere. And so the idea of movement representing this liberation, representing this revolution, you know, we had our amazing Steadicam DP Kitu, who came on the day where we were filming kind of that revolution scene, because we needed to dance around and wave in and through to show, order has been broken. And so that movement was really crucial for the visual aspect as well.
Yeah, and the blocking too.
Oh my, we had to, oh Lord Jesus, we had rehearsed.
Because it was, you know, it was so intricate.
Oh my gosh.
You know?
Yes.
And I think that's another aspect that may go over people's heads when they don't understand. Like,
but it was a journey.
It's all planned out, like the timing. It's really a rhythm in itself. You know?
Yeah, no, that was honestly the biggest challenge for me as a director. And we brought in the amazing Jamila Glass, who was our movement choreographer. And, you know, we had rehearsals because we were really trying to figure out, what does this movement look like? And at one point it was given Bring It On All or Nothing. You know, it was a little like coordinated dance. And then I was like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know if this is quite like there yet. But we were exploring ideas, and Jamila was so gracious just with exploring with me, you know. But ultimately what came from that was, okay, what is the one rhythm that they need to have? Like, what's that baseline rhythm? And that like clapping that you hear at the beginning from the children's game, to the tapping you hear on the wall, to what you're seeing on their hands, to when they're at the end slapping their legs, that kind of like beat was kept throughout. And now we're trying to like not only move camera on that beat, like we had a Bluetooth speaker playing, while they were running around, like trying to make sure everyone's like feeling that. And then also on the cuts, which again, major shout out to my team, because Nyla Robinson, I love her. We always talk about how creatively compatible we are. But that is our editor, and she is, again, master of her craft, knows rhythm, you know.
The pacing.
Yes, she was really intentional about that. that. So even cutting what we did with all this movement, like on the right beats, like she got that down. But yes, we had to do some rehearsals before even being on set. We did a rehearsal, and then blocking. Like this was the kind of big kahuna of all of the thing. Like this is the big spectacle. So we absolutely had to nail that, and we did, thankfully, with all of the people involved. So
yeah, and I think that's important too. I think part of the reason why the performances hit the way they do, right, is just because we can see it's not just the dialogue and the words; it's the full body experience, right? So can you just talk a little bit about that as well, where the body is an instrument as well, and I think this is a big part of the story.
Goodness. Oh my gosh, that's such a really good observation. Don, you be on it. That is amazing because as I just even think about like dance and what it means, like in our history and in our cultural, like movement has represented freedom at times. It has represented liberation. And so being able to articulate with our full, that's another actor thing in me. Like I did movement classes, so all the hippy dippy stuff. I understand, but that is also a part of the revolution, and there's so much joy in movement and joy in dance. And I believe joy is an act of resistance, and mind you, they're in a really like drab like situation, but that joy at dance, like that is so ingrained in us, like as people, and ultimately being able to communicate with the body was so important, because if you notice, this film doesn't have a lot of dialogue. It's actually very minimal on dialogue. It's a lot of like on the person's face, on what they're doing with their hands, their body. And so being able to communicate what they are trying to, say with this escape, like that was really important to capture in the fullness of them also, right? So, yeah.
Excellent. And, we talked a little bit about your editor, but I want to give her some love too, right? Because I thought, with this, the pacing, is so important, right? And understanding too, not just the pacing, but from like a technical perspective of, we talk a lot about, how frames talk to one another, so how what we see before, can segue to what we see next, and then what's going to come from there and from there. And I thought she did a really good job layering, especially, with so many like steady cam shots or just like panning and things like that. But just talk a little bit about, her expertise, and what she brought to the project.
Honey, Nyla is, hire her. Nyla is incredible. And even the way she came to this project was just so divine. Like I have to give this quick backstory. Like I had just met with another extraordinary editor. Like I just had a meeting with her, fantastic, love her work, and by the end of the meeting, I was just like, in my spirit, I'm like, I know this isn't her. It's not supposed to be her for this one. And so after that, I had kind of already resolved in my spirit, well, I gotta go and start this search over again. And I kid you not, I sat down in my chair in that instant after getting out of this meeting. I sat back in my chair. I opened my email inbox to an email from Nyla, who I've never met before in my life. And she emails me saying, hey, I saw your crowdfund campaign on Seed and Spark. We had been campaigning throughout Black History Month last year. And I just want, in such a like concise and powerful way, she was like, I just want to introduce myself. I'm really adamant about projects that are centered on Black women. And I love what you're doing behind the scenes. I've played at this and this fest. I've done this work. Here's a link to my website. And above all, like, I love what you're doing. She also, I keep telling her, I'm like, you need to teach a class on how to like pitch yourself. Because she sent all that in like 4 sentences, like 4 or 5 sentences. Yeah. And it was like in that moment, I was like, I think this is her. Because like I looked at her work, incredible. I chatted with her. We joke now because there was literally a whole earthquake in the middle of us talking. I'm like, maybe this is the Lord. Yeah, And so she is just such a visionary in her own right. She is, I see consistently throughout the people in our team, they're very intentional. And one thing about working with me as a director, especially for something like this, I wanted to have conversations with our editor early in pre-production. I wanted them involved. I wanted them, to let me know, like, is there any coverage that from your standpoint, you're like, please do not forget to get this, And so she was very involved from the moment she got on board. And she is also very like, I'm not trying to tell you like how to do this, but if anything, sure, like get at least this wide shot, or at least get this, And so working with her was a joy because even before we started having our sessions, she was like, articulate to me, like, what is this film about? Like one sentence, one word, what is it that you want to say? And I told her the aspect of taking up space. And she was like, okay, so that is what we are ensuring each frame, each scene communicates. And if it doesn't, that's when we have to be like, so why is this in here? But as far as pacing, I think she has a natural just like inclination for it. So there was so much I didn't have to do with her. She knew how to cut it up together and cut it up nice. And by the time we get to that last scene, she's cutting it up with the beat, with the rhythm, with the chants at the same. I'm like, girl, you do you.
Exactly.
She jokes. Yes. I'm like, let's go ahead, get to work. I'm just here. So
were you able to sit in the suite?
Every single one. Yeah. Yeah.
See, sometimes that helps too. And so,
yeah.
People as well, like it's that energy.
It matters, yes.
In the room where you're actually sitting and, actually giving some feedback and just sharing ideas.
Yes, in real time. And again, as a writer, like being in the room, I'm so used to like the pitching, like the back and forth. And so we had such a kind of yes and collaboration, if you will. But she jokes as I would be sitting out there with my legs up like, oh my God, they're just taking me out. And she's like, you are so animated and stuff. She got used to my shenanigans, but she would know like right away when she did something because I would just be like,
right, yeah.
And
it hit you.
Yes,
right?
Yes. No, we were cutting up. You didn't cut it up.
There we go.
Sessions, But yeah, it was really a beautiful partnership. And we were like, what else we gonna work on together?
Yeah. Yep. And that's, the beauty of working on these kind of projects, right? Where you kind of find people who you didn't even know each other.
No, that's the crazy part. And I am really adamant about like sticking with your crew, the people you love. But on this one, I was able to bring in, some more folks I hadn't worked with where now I'm like, oh, these are crucial in my like cohort, so that was really important to me as well.
Nice. And talk about your sound designer too, because we picked up on that a little bit earlier, but rhythm is in the title. Yes. Right. So it's important that motif was kind of carried throughout.
Yes, for sure.
And I think that was important. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, our sound designer, Bernard, he is absolutely amazing. He's this incredible older white man, actually. And how I even got to him was through a woman by the name of Bobby. Shout out to Bobby. She's worked with Film Independent extensively. And I had seen her work all on IMDb. Now, mind you, I was still transparently like understanding all the different departments within sound. There were so many. And so, seeing just her resume and how she's worked on pretty much every classic Black film you've ever seen, I reached out to her just in a cold email, and then we got on a call, and she's just so lovely, like as a human, has had such a history in the industry, so she knows everybody as far as sound. Yeah. And so while she wasn't able to come on board initially, she was like, but I got somebody for you who will do it for your budget because I get it independent, but she quickly connected us with Bernard, who you can tell he just really values like the craft. Like he is truly such a heartwarming like person, and he really values being able to, connect with the director because he's been on projects where they haven't always taken the time to value sound in the way they should, and he was very like intentional as well, very respectful, asking me all the time, Regina, do you like this? No? Okay, we'll fix that. He knew what I was trying to do and always welcomed any feedback I had. But ultimately, I think that we had a pretty clear vision for the rhythm we wanted people to feel. Like I'm big on when you're in your seat, like, what are you feeling? I said, Bernard, I need this bass to boom. Like, I need you to turn it up a little. He's like, you sure? Like, yes. So he understood everything about what we were trying to communicate, and something that he added that was really cool. We have at the end in the credits song, the clapping song. And so it was really something he took from that, where the opening of that song, you hear like bells clanging.
Yeah.
And so he took that and made it a part of the sound design where anytime you hear a like bell, it almost signifies the awakening of the women. And so he made that in there like so seamlessly. And I'm like, oh, this is really cool. Like, you go on, Bernard. Yes, little tiny things, you know? So Bernard, it was incredible to work with and absolutely a man of his craft as well.
Yeah, good. And I guess, next, where do we at? Oh, yeah, we got a little bit more time. So I guess next, can you just talk a little bit about, I want to come back to, some of these motifs and these themes, specifically, dealing with representation and also just dealing with, um, I want to say like believability, right? Because to me, the big part of this was like, do you believe these women's stories, right? And like I think you shared so eloquently earlier the fact that so many of the Black women, in our country, but just abroad as well, uh, they suffer from this where it's like, my word isn't enough, you know. And I could tell, just watching a film, right? Just some subtleties, right, with some of the acting and the performances that you know that was a major theme that we were trying to harp at. Like, we need to explore and listen to these women who, some were doctors, other were lawyers and things like that, right? But no one believed them, right? So can you just kind of talk a little bit about, that kind of theme that you want to carry throughout and what it meant for the story?
Yeah, I mean, that's heavy. That's heavy, Don. Oh, like, no, it's good though. It's good. That's good because I think without believability, we get nowhere. I mean, lack of belief can cause entire nations to be wiped out. If if we aren't believing who we need to believe in time. And I feel I feel also like we're in such a time where don't nobody check the source and nobody looking for whose truth, right. It's like, what is the truth and whose truth is it? Like all of that is just up in the air right now. And it's like, when you say how these women can't even be taken for their word, and like it's starting with them, it's literally, I don't know why, but even the scripture coming to mind, like in the beginning was the word, like, and so for people to not be taken at face value with what they're saying is their lived experience, like that's a problem because it's anybody's game at that point. And so that's why it is important to get in community with folks who champion truth, advocate for truth for one another, whether or not you like it or not. Like it's right. What it is, like I can tell you right now, I have 6 fingers, but if y'all look at my hand, you're like, I think she's delusional. Right. So like being able to make sure we are preserving those who are, beacons of truth, who are adamant about getting the truth out. We were just talking about how important, like, I feel documentary work is going to become, like archiving our stories, archiving this history, where it's like, no, look at the footage. Like, you tell me, like, that's not what happened. Like, I'm looking at it right here. Exactly. It's going to be so crucial. Otherwise, we're left with like people just trying to amplify their own voice that is simultaneously getting drowned out, exactly. by so much noise. And so that belief, especially when you're just saying like who you are and people are like, right. I don't think so.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I don't know. I don't even know where to begin with that. There's so many thoughts. Like,
it's so layered.
It is very layered, but I think that belief has the power to change the world, and we could all just get on one accord. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, so that's the right, but I don't know.
I know, right? Exactly. So, as a filmmaker and a director, and we'll open it up here in a sec for some questions. Can you just talk about, why it's important to tell these stories that you tell, right? Because you have a specific perspective, as a filmmaker. So why is it important that we share these stories?
Man, I mean, it's proof that we were here, first of all. And also, it's so important to amplify the message and the voices that may otherwise have gone undetected. There's so many times where maybe a film that I've screened, resonates with someone in a way I hadn't even expected or planned out. Because you can't plan that stuff out, right? You just make what you feel led to make. And for some reason, it's meant to impact people in a way you didn't anticipate. So it's really important to keep telling the stories, whoever is watching this, whatever you feel you cannot shake. Where's my camera at? Because I need to tell somebody in one of these, that one, so whatever idea keeps coming to your brain and you can't shake it, every day it's like a nagging and it's in your gut. You even start to feel anxious if you don't get it out. That's the one that you need to release, because somebody is on the other side of that story getting out into the world. You may not know the impact of it just yet, but just even with the belief that it's worth being shared, do something with it, even if it's starting small. We need your voice. We need it released into the earth. So at such a time as this, just needed to say that.
Yeah, no, that's important, and I tell, filmmakers that all the time. That's your superpower. The uniqueness of you, your experiences, that's what differentiates you from everybody else, right? Don't try to copy what you've seen.
For sure. And it's like, and you can be inspired, right? Sometimes we see things and it kind of stirs up something in us and we have a little bit of a similarity here. But, we've seen it time and time again as writers where whenever anyone's caught chasing trends or whatever they think will hit, because people are into Game of Thrones type work now or this, it's no, you are completely bypassing what for the back of your hand. Exactly. It's always the stories that are the most personal and the most specific that get the most universal, because it's coming from whether or not people with their mouths want to articulate what they think is truth. Spirit recognize spirit, and what's truth when you hear it, when you watch it, when you feel it, right? So that is so important to hold on to.
Good. All right, well, I want to just open it up for some questions here. We're about maybe 10 more minutes. Anybody want to start us off here? Blake, you can pass it around. Who's got some?
Hey, Sarah. Hello. I just want to say your film was incredibly moving.
Thank you.
One of the things that I really picked up on was the concept of sisterhood and community and not leaving a single woman behind, which I thought was so important and inspiring to see in film. Can you talk about what inspired you to display that in your film, and what sisterhood means to you in a world where women are constantly being pitted against each other?
Yeah.
I love this question, Sarah. Yes. No, within the film, it was their sisterhood that led to their escape. Right. It was their sisterhood that led to their awakening of who they are truly. And so that was just really crucial for me to depict. And for Aja and I, as we were discussing, a lot of times when you get someone in isolation is when they are led to believe that they aren't who they are. But the minute you get planted in a community, someone's affirming who you are, what they see in you, even when you telling yourself you're not who you are. To have someone be able to be a mirror back to you, I am your keeper, I am your mirror. That is so powerful. And just speaking for myself, oh my gosh, my community is tight. Since I even was little, I feel like I've always been planted in some sort of community, whether it was church, whether it was speech team, even in the industry. When I first moved, right away to LA after graduating, I had a pretty seamless experience, mainly because I was embraced right away, and especially by Black women, and Black women who they would be transparent and not say to me out of spite, but literally just say it as a fact because it's true. And I know it is. They were like, Regina, when I was your age, I didn't have a me, I was having to bump around a little bit, but they were always so giving of their time. They were always so gracious with the lessons they taught me that I will always keep. And even to this day, if I need to call them, they're always quick to answer. But I've had such a strong community, and it continues to just deepen and feel nurtured, where we're able to recognize, the gifts in one another and uplift that, but also just be able to say girl, they are crazy. We need to just chop it up real quick because this is crazy. We need to move. and all the things. So that is something that is lived experience for me, is the power of community, and just having that access to that has been really crucial in my journey for sure. Thank you for that.
Anybody else? Max? Yeah, it looks like Max.
Hey, Max, girl.
Hi, I'm Maxine. I just wanted to say first and foremost.
Your name is Maxine? You saw the film?
Yes.
Wow. Go ahead.
But I just wanted to say first and foremost, I really enjoyed the film.
Thank you.
It was a beautiful piece. I'm currently expanding more into the horror genre and trying to write a horror noir script. I guess my question, and this might be two questions in one, is I used to be a very outspoken person, someone who valued social justice a lot, and something I told myself recently when I was creating the treatment for this script was, when I'm creating any type of content, that I need to be intentional in everything that I'm creating. So I really like that you mentioned intent. But I guess my question was, with being intentional as a creator, do you ever go through moments where you feel like maybe you feel like you can't be the voice for everybody, or like periods where you experience burnout, specifically from talking about things that are related to politics all the time?
So basically you're asking, do I ever feel burnt out from making art that has like these underlying kind of like political messages? I don't ever feel burnt out from that. Sometimes I may be working myself too hard, but as far as like, I'll never get tired of telling the truth. I'll never get tired of telling the truth. And as far as wondering whether or not am I the voice for it, my thought on the thing is, if I am given a vision for something, and if I am given that idea, like, I don't see why it wasn't supposed to come to me like in the first place.
Absolutely.
You know, there might be ills in the world or in society that I see where I'm like, I know there's different communities that are more equipped to speak on something like this. But a lot of times it really just comes from a place of like, you know, I receive this like so strongly. I feel I'm getting chills when I'm even thinking about this idea. I'm an actor too, so we're passionate people, you know, so anything that comes up for me naturally and organically, I never really tire of. I never get burnt out by. I would want to follow up and ask if you at times feel like because you are seeing so much like happen in the world where there's so many like problems going on, do you ever feel a little unfocused in the things you're like wanting to speak about, like grabbing for every, you know, issue?
I would definitely say for sure. Previously, especially with me saying that I used to be a very outspoken person, I went to a predominantly white high school and grew up in a predominantly white community. So oftentimes, especially because we grew up in the period of George Floyd and watching all those riots and protests happen during 2020, I was often the one who's expected to speak up for everybody, or be the one that was expected to educate everybody. Because not only was I one of the few Black girls at my school, I was one of the few Black girls who actually cared enough to say something. So I would say after a while of being the one that was expected to be responsible to always speak up, especially at such a young age, coming into college and coming into adulthood, I would say my voice has definitely gotten a lot quieter over time. And I'm not outspoken as I used to be. And I'm trying to find the middle ground while I'm writing, where, you know, I can make sure I'm getting this message out and getting the message out correctly while still enjoying what I'm doing, instead of making it feel like a chore, or like it is my job to get the message out, but while getting the message out, I want to be passionate and intentional about it.
Yeah. As you're speaking, like the word like advocate is like really loud, like in my brain. And so I would say that is what you are inherently, even by you voicing that you're someone who's often speaking up when others are not. Now, remember, your piece is also worthy of preserving. And so you need to make sure that you are putting in place for yourself systems that allow you to self-regulate, because as someone who probably gets riled up by a lot of what we see, and rightfully so, like it can be very easy to get off balance and then become burnt out, right? Because you don't have anything kind of acting as a guardrail for you. And so one thing that I would suggest is definitely examine like what communities you might have access to. And even starting now, if there's even a friend that like you all share the same understanding of like this needs change, see how you can partner with others so that it doesn't always feel like it's on you. You're not going to make it far if you're by yourself. Like another thing as you were speaking was, I'm like, oh, you're going to one day need a team of people you can delegate to. So ensure that you are right now establishing systems so that you know how to regulate, so that you know how to assess, is this something I'm going to engage in right now or not? Otherwise, not going to give it that energy because my energy is needed here. Right. Your selective energy is needed in the revolution, right? Like you still don't shrink. Just know how to allocate properly. And once you know how to allocate, then once you get to, whatever level, then know how to delegate. Because it's not that you need to shrink your voice, you just need to help others who can amplify it, right? Because you know what you know, right? And you just can't be the only one shouldering that. So continue to be outspoken strategically, I would suggest.
Thank you so much.
Of course, Maxine.
Hi,
Hey, Cam.
My question is, while watching the film, it took me a second watch to get it, but the outfits or costumes that they have the women change into, at first it was like, why are they on the outfits? And there's not an actual word for them, but
you're right, that's what, yeah.
And then when they were in the more promiscuous outfits, I was like, is this when they first came in? That didn't make sense either, because we didn't see that she, that's not what we see her whole life, that's not what she usually looks like. I'm assuming those are supposed to be archetypes and stereotypes
Yes.
that the girl puts on, that will connect to the clothes you put on in the beginning. I just want to know what level of intention were with the outfits, or if there was any other like stereotypes or archetypes you guys went through or thought about putting on. I know there was a third outfit.
Yes.
In the end, I didn't see it too well what it was. I thought it was more like African garb, and I didn't really see it that well.
Yes, that's good. Good eye. Shout out to our costume designer, Wendell C. Carmichael, who also comes from the world of theater. But yes, you are spot on. We were trying to capture the archetypes typically projected on a Black woman. So the mammy stereotypes, we had some very, Gone with the Wind music also playing in that simulation. Then you hop to the one where they're hypersexualized. So this Jezebel, archetype. Yeah. And then by the end, it was supposed to be, they're being made out to be savages. And originally, I think we were doing like a loincloth and all of that. But something for me, I am still very protective, of my actors, especially Black women. So I'm like, I don't want them up in here in loincloths. Like, can they be in there? And that's something that I did talk with Aja about, because I'm big as far as respecting the writer's original intent. So I'm like, can we have them like right here? And like they're about to change. And she's like, oh yeah, that's fine. Right. But yes, that was going to be the last one, this idea of a savage woman who can't be controlled, which kind of like plays into the aggressive Black woman stereotype just for speaking up. We're painting out to be that we're aggressive, and it's like, no, I'm just telling you the facts and such. So yes, the costume design was very intentional in portraying those archetypes.
You guys are great.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we appreciate you. Yeah, thank you for the time.
I mean, I knew that. But.
Thank you. Well, yeah, let's just thank Regina again, y'all, for her time and her expertise here.
Thank y'all.
And yeah, we will hopefully see you tonight.
Yeah, see y'all tonight, 8 p.m., opening night.
All right.